Today we're going to be talking about hypermobility. What is hypermobility? How do I know if I have hypermobility? Causes hypermobility? All of the basics we're going to be covering today. So I want to start off with what is hypermobility. Hypermobility is a connective tissue disorder, which is usually the result of a defect in collagen. So this can cause things such as chronic pain, chronic fatigue. It's linked to MCAS, autism, POTS, ADHD. There is so many reasons why you should care about hypermobility, and it's often misdiagnosed in the communities and looked over and misunderstood. But it is so interwoven with so many conditions that it really should be looked at and considered. And I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of things in relation to it. But so today I just want to start with some of the main things that you might notice are having low muscle tone, difficulty with form or proprioception are often seen, and it can cause chronic fatigue, any form of dysautonomia, bladder incontinence, postural issues can be a thing as well. A lot of these things are very interwoven with hypermobility, so there's a lot of things that we need to know about it to make sure our lives are healthy and happy, right? When you go to the doctor, if you have anything chronic that you've gone to the doctor about, nobody can explain it, there is a chance that it is connected to hypermobility because there are so many things that are comorbid with it. And so I think it's a little interesting how little is researched and known about hypermobility, considering how interwoven it is with all of these other disorders. So I personally think, this is a slight tangent, but I personally think that because the joint connective tissue is loose, well, actually, this is not even personal. There is research to show that because your joint connective tissue is loose, that affects your entire body. The collagen production in your body affects your entire body. So this affects things like your gut motility. One of the most important systems in the body is our gut, right? Our gut motility and our digestion play a very big role in a lot of things because that's how your body absorbs nutrients. A lot of people have chronic stomach issues, stomach pain. If your connective tissue is loose, right? All of your tissue is loose. Like in your body is holding itself up in a different way. This is why a lot of people might hear the term hypermobile and think, oh, then I should be flexible. No, this might not always be the case. You can be flexible, but it also causes your body to have to protect itself in other ways. If, sometimes the wrong ligaments, the wrong muscles are just extra tight and extra tense, and your fascia is just trying really hard to hold everything together to keep you standing upright, and oftentimes it's in incorrect posture. So this can affect you in so many ways, right? Like the gut is where a lot of things start, right? It's how our body absorbs nutrients. You might not absorb nutrients properly. You're not digesting properly. And also the hormones that control our mood starts in the gut, right? Because we know that serotonin has to go to your brain, and it's all connected to our gut. Let's talk about all the things that are comorbid with hypermobility. We have autism, ADHD, MCAS, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos, obviously. Ehlers-Danlos is like a severe form of hypermobility. It's when you're really likely to dislocate joints really easily. And this is the case for most people with hypermobility. You might suffer from subluxations or also joint dislocations. A lot of the times people with hypermobility have a really tight pelvic floor because it's trying to hold our body up together internally. Or, the opposite could happen and you could just have a really loose pelvic floor because the other muscles are squeezing on it in the wrong way. It depends. Everybody is different. It's case by case basis. It's not going to affect everybody in the same way. Some people are going to have it way more severe. If you can go like this, there's a chance that you have hypermobility, but that's not the case for everybody. Some people can do that and hyperextend their elbows and their knees, and a lot of the times you'll see these people with poor posture. They will have that posture where the hips are shifted forward, the knees are locked out, and you're standing out on the wrong sides of your feet, or you're putting all the weight in one area of your foot instead of having your feet flat on the ground and having you stable like this. A lot of people rotate in or rotate out, or just not have full grip on the floor. Like I said, having a really tight pelvic floor can give you issues with incontinence, it makes it hard to fully empty your bladder when you are using the restroom, right? So for a man, this might be like starting and stopping. Women too. But sometimes it's like you still feel like you need to pee even after you just peed, or you feel like you might be getting a UTI, or you get frequent UTIs. It's because you can't empty your bladder properly. This can all be helped with exercise, but you have to know what exercise to do, and you have to treat exercise a little bit differently if you are hypermobile. You actually have to treat everything a little bit differently if you are hypermobile, because like I said, it's connected to MCAS, and it can affect your histamine levels in the body, right? So a lot of people who are hypermobile also have sensitive skin, sensitive stomachs, as I was mentioning before. There's just a wide array of ways it can affect you, right? So you have to be very careful. You are more sensitive, literally. Like, you are more likely to get sick because your immune system is not as strong. How do we go about fixing a tight pelvic floor? And how do we manage our loose joints? And what do we do about all of these issues that hypermobility causes, right? Like, how do we help ourselves? And a lot of this has to do, so if you have chronic pain or chronic issues in any way, the one thing that is really vital for hypermobility is movement, but the right movement, not just any movement, okay? Because especially if you don't know what you're doing, it can be very hard to really help yourself. A lot of people with hypermobility, we struggle with being present in our bodies because we have dysregulation. We experience a lot of dysregulation and dysautonomia. And it can be really hard to be present in our bodies and feel into our bodies. This allows for a lot of disassociation and carrying tension in the wrong places because you don't feel that your body is doing this. You don't know that your body is doing this, right? And this is a problem, especially for a lot of people with autism and ADHD, and especially people with autism, very, very severe autism, it's more obvious, but on a more mild basis, it is the main issue. I think is a lot of people are not aware of what's going on inside their body and why they feel the way that they do. For example, like if you're really anxious, right, your heart starts racing really fast and you start having a hard time breathing. What is going on in your body in that moment, right? You're unregulated. When we do this, as science has shown, that you get tense and your body starts carrying stress in the wrong places, and there's so much that goes into it. It's very, very layered. But so where we want to start with is stability, right? Because we have these loose connective tissues and this loose joints, we need to learn how to strengthen the areas in our body that are weak, right? So if we have loose joints, we want to build muscle surrounding the joints to support the joints, right? So that, instead of our shoulders just sinking into the sockets or sinking into the joints, we're stable. Our muscles are supporting us. When we're sitting in a chair, we're not collapsing over because we have a stable core that's propping us upright, and our back muscles are holding our shoulders up, and our shoulders are holding our neck up, and we're not just using our traps to support all of our body weight all the time because we're hunched over like this. No, we want to, and that could be even more prominent for someone who is hypermobile because you have loose connective tissue. You need to strengthen those muscles more, because if we're sitting like this and we're compressing our stomach and we're slumping our shoulders, we're going to experience issues, especially bladder issues, gut issues. Like, take a breath, close your eyes, and really try to feel into your body, right? And this is really hard if you've been disassociating your whole life. You need to learn how to really feel into your body, right? And this is really hard, especially for somebody who is in a constant state of fight or flight. And so we need to learn how to regulate ourselves. Regulating yourself is a really, really big tool. Regulating your emotions. This is obviously different for everybody and what you need. But there are a lot of tools. Breath work is so, so, so important. Because a lot of the times, if we're used to sitting like this, slumping our shoulders, compressing our chest, our lungs are not getting a full breath, right? So learning how to breathe, I have videos on this. Go check my page. You want to breathe to the front and the back. Expand your ribs in both directions. You don't want to shrug your shoulders up. You want to take a deep breath through your whole body, right? Check my page for videos on that. But also, too, so how do we start building the muscles in our body to support ourselves? If you've never worked out before, this might be really difficult. And as someone who is hypermobile, it is really easy to have bad form and have no idea, So I always tell people that it's really beneficial to take a video of yourself working out so you can see physically what your body is doing. The more of your body you can see, the better. I know that this is really hard and intimidating for people, so that, find your own way around it. Maybe if you can find a personal trainer that knows anything about hypermobility, that's great. But even then, like I take clients, and I'm never gonna ask you to like take your shirt off or something so I could see your muscles in your back and make sure that you're doing it right. I can try my best to see, but at the end of the day, what you need to know is what feels right to you. And when you are exercising, you need to make sure that you're feeling it in the right muscle. So ask your coach, what muscle am I supposed to be feeling this in? And if you are not feeling it in that muscle, then you need to ask your coach for maybe some cues. And I think a lot of the time, engaging your core is the hardest one to master, because it's really hard to feel what feels right for a lot of people, because there are so many muscles in the core. Engaging it from the deep core and outward is kind of confusing, and you could bias the wrong muscles. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen videos of like doming, like when your abs dome because you're using just the front abs instead of like the whole core. This happens a lot. This is super common, and it can be really hard to learn how to cue someone to engage their inner core. There's a lot of misconceptions around this. Like, some people will say, bring your belly button to your spine. And this works, but this only works if you know how to draw up your pelvic floor. Because if you're just drawing your belly button to your spine and compressing everything, and you're not engaging your deep core muscles, you're just gonna like create that like B-belly thing. Like, you're kind of just drawing the muscles in, and it's not all of the correct muscles, right? So this might put a strain on your back in wrong places, right? It's very layered. It's all very layered. And so that's why it's really important to learn these things and learn how to do it for you. This is gonna sound so silly and so crazy, but this is the cue that really helped me personally understand my deep core muscles. And this might not work for everybody, but it's like, it kind of paints a picture of how you need to, like, it's case by case, right? But some people might already do this naturally. I never did. So somebody said in a video once, this was a Pilates instructor, and she was like, I always tell my clients to imagine that your booty hole wants to say hello to your belly button, right? And that made me laugh. And it was just so absurd and so silly. But for some reason, like, that is something that I had never, like, that movement, the movement. And sometimes you have to be silly to get it, because, how else do you really explain that movement? You know what I mean? Like, if you try it, which if you've never moved your body in that way before, it kind of helps you engage the inner core muscles. And if you think about drawing those muscles that you use to do that, drawing those muscles all the way up to make sure, and then rolling your shoulders back and down and having a straight line of energy going from that inner core that you just zipped up through from the bottom up, zip your core up, roll your shoulders back and down all the way through your neck and head, keeping your head up, shoulders back, making sure that your traps aren't holding your body up, right? You should be able to have a straight line of energy going all the way through all the way up through your head. Like, you need to think about what muscles you're using in your neck to hold your head up even, and where, your head, and what muscles are you using in your face. And all of these things are so important. The little ones add up. You see some people and they'll have one side of their face, the muscles are a little bit tighter. All of these muscles, individual, like, there are so many individual tiny muscles in your body that you need to learn how to control. And that's why regulation is really important, and really learning how to connect with your inner body and feeling everything that's going on in your body is really important. And this might be really difficult at first, especially if you've never done that, because you're going to feel really unregulated, and you're going to be like, why does everything feel uncomfortable? And it is really difficult sometimes, because you have to really face discomfort. And but that's the only way to get to that true connection with your body, right? You might realize, oh shit, I've been breathing wrong, I've been sitting wrong, I've been standing wrong, I've been walking wrong my entire life, and this is what's causing my chronic pain. But until you have the realization of what is going on, for example, for me, I have slightly shifted hips, and I'm slightly tighter on one side than the other. It kind of shows, it kind of drags me down a little bit on one side, so I need to be really careful. And I used to get horrible migraines. I get ocular migraines, which is also related to hypermobility, because when you are hypermobile, right, and you have maladaptive movement patterns, you end up carrying the tension in the wrong places. So if you can see, it's getting a little bit better because I've been working on it. But I used to have, it's kind of hard to see, one trap was way more developed than the other because that was my more dominant one, right? And because I was, and when you get tense in certain areas and it hits certain places, I would always get ocular migraines, right? And so I would get big blind spots in my vision, and that, is caused by my body being tight in the wrong places. It was in a place that was not supposed to be tight, and it got to the point where it's so tight that it's affecting my vision, right? And we know that these happen. And I remember when I first got diagnosed with the ocular migraines with aura, I was really young. The first time I ever got one of those migraines, I thought I was like having a stroke. It was so scary. I couldn't see anything. My right arm went numb. Like, it was really bad. And I was like 13 years old. I've been suffering with this for pretty much my entire life. And these are things that, and I didn't find out I was hypermobile until I was 24, which I still don't even have a formal diagnosis, because it's really it can be a little bit pointless to get diagnosed for hypermobility because so little is known about it, right? And that's why I want to spread information about it, because if you go to the doctor and you tell them, oh, I'm hypermobile, this doesn't really mean anything to them. But, the more we get to know that it's related to POTS and MCAS, like, these could be really major signs of why you could be experiencing certain health issues, right? If you're having a really bad flare, you might want to think about, consuming low histamine foods. Your own body, right? So that's why self-advocacy is so important, and knowing how to feel into your body and being able to regulate yourself to the point where you can feel into your body and know what things that you need to do for yourself, and building that intuitive connection with your body and of knowing what you need. For example, for me, if I'm having a really bad pain flare, say I'm having a lot of back pain. I get this pain right here that comes from I have underdeveloped shoulders and like these muscles in my, and some in my chest, and because these are areas that I've neglected are here and here, and it sometimes if I sit, I work remote on my computer. I'm sitting a lot. I try not to. I have a standing desk to kind of aid me with that. And I also use mobility aids. That's another thing. Mobility aids are really important. I really like to I have problems with putting too much pressure on my knees. I don't have knee pain, okay? But if I were to maybe do a bunch of really heavy leg days or walk a lot, I would get this random knee pain. And it would go away. It would always go away. So I would gaslight myself into thinking that, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I was just, I was just making it up. Like, that didn't, I would just convince myself that everything's fine, right? And that's something that a lot of hypermobile people probably have dealt with. Like, you tell yourself everything's fine because, like, oh, if it was really a problem, like, I would still be experiencing that pain right now, right? This can be really helpful to know about, because I didn't understand that, and I kept telling myself, like, oh no, everything's fine. I had to start actually physically logging every time I felt physical pain so that I would stop convincing myself that nothing was wrong with me, and then realizing later, like, oh yeah, something is wrong with me, later on. And so now I wear knee wraps, which really helps me with my proprioception, which, as somebody with hypermobility, like I said earlier, you struggle with your proprioception. This makes form really difficult in the gym. Because your body, you kind of feel off, but you don't really know why, and if you can't get the form right. Like, I struggled with RDLs for the longest time. I could not do an RDL because I couldn't get the form right, and I didn't understand what I was doing wrong. It was my pelvic floor. I couldn't engage my pelvic floor right to keep my lower back from taking over the movement, because I would start hinging, and then all of a sudden my lower back is taking on too much of a load because my core isn't working properly. My core is not taking up as much of a load, and I kept trying to squeeze my abs and engage my abs, and nothing was working. It's because I had a too tight of a pelvic floor. I didn't know how to engage it properly, and I helped this through breath work and learning cues that help me engage the right muscles, right? And doing Pilates and those kind of things. Pilates can be really good for somebody who's hypermobile if you know what you're doing. You don't want to hurt yourself. Yoga can be as well, but yoga is super tricky for people with hypermobility, because if you don't know what you're doing and you're just stretching your loose joints, you're in down dog and you're like pulling your shoulder completely out of this, like I can pull my shoulder until it's like super loose, and like I can just totally dump all the pressure into my joints, right? But now that I know, I need to keep it tight and controlled and hold the movement instead of stretching into a movement. So that's why stretching can be a little bit difficult, because a lot of hypermobile people tend to end up stretching that loose connective tissue and dumping into their joints, right? So what you really want to do to get a good stretch, focus on like dynamic stretches more so than a static holding stretch like in a yin yoga class. That I would steer clear of until you're super connected with your body, and you know when to stop and when you're dumping into your joints and you're pulling on that loose connective tissue, because that will exacerbate your pain. If you're looking for a relief, you will end up just making it worse. But I do think yoga is really good for if you learn more how to do an isometric hold. An isometric hold is a great movement for someone who is hypermobile. And while I think exercise is super important, I'm not talking about just going into the gym and just start lifting heavy ass weights right off the bat and just like slamming 45-pound dumbbells or whatever, That is going to make your pain worse also, because it's a slow process to kind of undo these maladaptive patterns, movement patterns that we've had our whole lives, right? So it's not going to go away. Your pain is not going to go away overnight. You need to slowly correct the issues within your body, and it will slowly improve, right? There's no magic fix, but the sooner you start, the better it will be. You need to focus on more mobility drills, stability drills. I will be making a ton of videos if you want to know about what kind of movements you should be doing. Just wait on that. I will make more videos. But in a general sense, that you want to focus on movements like an isometric hold would be really beneficial, especially for a beginner, is really learning how to master the form of a movement and just holding it instead of loading it with weight, right? So one that I do for like hip flexor and quad strength and stability to take the pressure off my hips is a isometric lunge on each side, right? So I will get into the perfect lunge position, and this takes a minute. You need to really set yourself up, especially if you are not really connected with that part of your body. For example, for me, I mentioned this earlier, I have slightly uneven hips. So when I'm in the isometric lunge hold, I need to make sure that I'm really aligning my hips and making sure that my hips are straight and aligned with each other, and that I'm not just dumping into my hip joint, and that my hip flexors are taking on the proper load. And a lot of the time, for those of us who sit a lot, those side glute muscles are weak from sitting. Our hip flexors are weak from sitting because they're not getting active. We're sitting in a chair, we're stretching that back out, and we're shortening the muscles in the front, which are our hip flexors and like our side glutes and all those things. Maybe doing some like flamingos, or I posted this one on my page where you put a band on your one foot and you have the other foot on a foam yoga block and you pull it out to the side. That one doesn't have a name, but I will definitely link that video in the description. If you're going to do a leg day, for example, you would start with a mobility movement like that, waking that side glute up, right? Wake that side glute up before you jump into your workout. Because that muscle is asleep because you've been sitting down a lot, common issues that one might have, right? And so I need to really focus on locking in with my hip flexors and those side glutes, and I'll do like hip flexor lifts maybe to prep my hip flexor for this movement, right? And then so after I've completed both of those things, and I'm really locking in and holding, just holding, instead of doing lunges or like holding weights or using a band or anything like that, I'm and just like holding that position static, and that will do so much more than, you know, trying to do like a super heavy squat and not being prepared for that movement, right? So that's definitely a way that you can start to build the proper muscles. And once you really master that kind of thing and you really know that your form is correct and you're feeling better, your pain is not as pronounced, you know, you're adjusting your body, you're not getting migraines, you know, your digestion is better because you're moving better, and you know, when you're sitting you're not as uncomfortable in your chair, all these things. That's when you know that you're doing it right? And this is different for everybody. I like I said earlier, I use mobility aids. Like sometimes if I'm having a really bad symptom day, but I still need to sit at my chair and I need to work, and I'm just in too much pain to stand at my standing desk, you know, things like compression socks or, you know, torso support. We don't want it, you know, so much that we're using it as a crutch, but like when we are having really bad flare-up days, this is what we need to do. You need to go do some mobility drills and wake up those sleepy glutes, and treat yourself gently, you know. Don't like make it this big hard thing that's going to be really difficult for you to maintain. That's where we starting to get into our ego and trying to do it for like the way that we look or something. That's when we get into these issues and we exacerbate our pain. Take it easy, be gentle on your body, you know. You only get one. It's so corny, but it's true. We really need to take care of it and learn how to manage the systems within our body better, because we're the only person at the end of the day that knows our body, right? So you have to really take it slow and just be gentle on your body. Use a mobility aid. Sometimes I will take a scarf and I will literally wrap around my shoulders and tie it so that it holds my shoulders back on a day where I'm having a really bad flare up. Like I'll get this pain right here if I'm like slumped like this for too long. So I'll take that and I'll tie my shoulders back and, you know, keep my shoulders up while I type at my laptop, you know, so I'm like here instead of here, you know, and, you know, just working on strengthening that back so that my natural resting state is more here than it is here, right? And like I said, like if I have a pain back here, that doesn't mean it's because that needs to be stretched or foam rolled or whatever it is that you're doing to manage your pain. What it means is the surrounding muscles are, you know, like that might be a place, like wherever you hold the tension the most is going to be painful. You know, doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be stretched. Sometimes you just need to make the muscles around it stronger, right? So that's another big thing. Because of this, I deal with chronic fatigue. I cannot stay awake sometimes. Like when I was in school, I was always falling asleep during class. I used to get in trouble at my old job because there are certain times a day where I just can't. And a lot of this has to do, it's also very layered why the fatigue was so intense, but I suffered a lot of repercussions because of it. This is one of the most unmanageable symptoms that I have. It really, like, I failed a class in school because it was at a certain time that I just could never stay awake no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much sleep I got. It wasn't enough, and I could always do caffeine or whatever, but I'm the type of person, like I said, people with hypermobility are much more sensitive. It was really, really difficult for me to consume caffeine because if I drink too much caffeine in a day, I'll wake up the next day feeling hungover. I feel dysregulated, I feel tense, I feel stiff, I get really tight and on alert and, you know, in my fight or flight, and it's really difficult for me to manage those feelings. So caffeine is something that I try to avoid because it triggers me so badly. If I do overdo it, which it's really easy to overdo things when you are sensitive. For example, I'm also really sensitive to alcohol. I cannot drink heavily. I will feel really bad, and it very quickly gets to a point of unmanageable behavior. So these are things that are because of, related to that hypermobility, right? And it's so layered about how deep it goes and why it does such things, and why and how it affects everybody differently. But those are things that I always avoid, especially if I'm having a flare up. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to do caffeine. I'm not going to do these things. I'm going to go do something that regulates me. I'm going to do the mobility. I'm going to go to, I really feel good after being in heat, like a steam room really relaxes me. Like, and also too, you have lymph flow issues when you have hypermobility, right? So, that's why, your skin might be more sensitive, or you might get sick more often, is that lymph is stuck in your body, right? It's not flowing right because your body is stiff in the wrong places. It's blocking that lymph flow. So the steam room is one way that I manage my own lymph flow that I think is really, really, really beneficial. Doing lymphatic drainage massages, learning how to do that on yourself is really beneficial. I get really tight in my traps, so I have a massager that I use at home, one of those at-home shiatsu shoulder massagers to really, sometimes help me with that tension in my traps. And if I had more money, I would definitely get regular massages. And those are things, and that it's pretty similar to the effect of like using a mobility aid, and just, like having compression socks or something that helps you manage that pain, and learning what works for you to manage that pain is really, really super important. And again, it just goes back to knowing your own body. And yeah, I feel like I covered so much in this video so far. I've really been talking for a long time. This is kind of more of like a flow of consciousness type of hypermobility chat, and just like dumping some information that I know that would help somebody who is just kind of trying to wrap their mind around hypermobility might want to hear. Because, I mean, long term, we get things like arthritis and things like this because we don't have the proper systems to protect our bodies from the damages of hypermobility, because if we don't understand it and we don't know where to start. But I can't stress enough how important movement is to the body, even if you don't have hypermobility, but especially if you do. And again, the right movement. And that's why I just want to like educate people a little bit, and this is just very, very basic level understanding, because I don't want to give so much that I start to confuse people who are just trying to get into learning about hypermobility. I don't want it to be overwhelming. It is definitely manageable, and I just want to spread more so the information that there are options for you out there, and it is possible to advocate for yourself. And if you need help or just want to chat with somebody about it, if you guys have questions that you would like me to answer, I would love to hear them, right? Leave them in the comments, my social medias, whatever you want to do. I would greatly appreciate that. I would love to talk about this more. And I just get all the information that I have out there. Again, I'm a certified personal trainer. I am not a doctor. In the videos and in the lecturers and all of the things that I've studied, a lot of them will say that, a lot of money has not gone into hypermobility research because there's not that much of a demand for it. Nobody really cares. But that's why I feel like the more we talk about it and the more people are get interested in it and realize how much it could be affecting their body, we should be able to get research done about this, because it is so impactful and it does affect so many systems, and it's so layered, and there's so much more I could say about it. But I definitely just wanted to talk about it and come on here and just share my information and just create a dialogue about it, because it is so interesting and so layered. And I have so many thoughts about it and so many theories that I don't even want to get into, because again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not doing any sort of research on it. I'm just saying what I know, and just kind of spreading the information that I have, that I can't even really get into like my theories or anything on it and what that means, because I just want this to be straightforward. But there's so many things that I would love the chance to explore in a research manner, and then come back with more information, but obviously I'm not a researcher, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist or anything, so I can't do all that. But yeah, I don't know, I just think it's a really important topic to talk about, and I just wanted to share it and hear what you guys have to say about it. And yeah, let me know, leave me some comments, like, follow, share, subscribe, all those things. And yeah, I hope, and I know that I just kind of rambled a lot, and this was just like a spew of all the thoughts that I had in my brain about hypermobility, but I could really break it down, but this is just so much more convenient to my thought process, and I don't know, maybe this will resonate with somebody out there, and hopefully you guys were able to sit through this whole thing and just listen to me yap about it. But if you would like a more structured answer to any of these questions, I can definitely do that. It's just not what my goal was today, but I could definitely do that. Because I know that it can be hard to obtain or absorb the right information from what I'm saying, because I did say so much in such a short amount of time, and I did kind of hop from topic to topic, so it's not like I can't really break this up. But anyways, here I am still yapping and ranting. But all that to say, if you have any unexplained chronic pain that's like kind of untestable, maybe you should look into hypermobility. And because it is related to things that are more diagnosable, like MCAS, you might have MCAS or POTS, or something that is linked to it. So this could help you along your way to that diagnosis. You know what I mean? Like, maybe hypermobility is not the final stop. Maybe you have Ehlers-Danlos or MCAS, and that's what's really the deeper thing that's affecting you beyond it. So this isn't just a tool for people with hypermobility. This goes for people with autism, because there is a really high correlation between the two. Migraines, unexplained illness, frequent UTIs, like, this goes for everybody and anybody. You can do these things to help you. You can do the isometric holds, you can learn how to engage your core properly, you can work out those muscles, because the more you strengthen those muscles to hold your body upright in the proper position, regardless of you having hypermobility or not, this is something that's important, having proper posture and not putting that extra strain on the wrong places. We're helping our gut motility by moving. We're not getting migraines because we're not tense in the wrong places. You know what I mean? Like, this is stuff that's really important just for the fundamentals of life, and just making sure that we have a good quality of life as we age, and just being able to be healthy and happy and manage our stress through movement, and all these things are just so important to daily life. And thank you if you stuck through this whole thing, because I'm probably not even going to edit this very much. I'm just going to post it as the brain dump that it was, because it's just kind of more of like an honest conversation from my brain about hypermobility, just some thoughts I wanted to get out into the world, and questions that I feel like people might want to have answers to, or just things that I want people to think about in terms of their own health and their own bodies. And so yeah, you're so cool if you listen to this whole thing, because I know that it in a day and age of 5-second reels and like get to the point, and I definitely did not do that. So thank you for listening and engaging with my content. I really greatly appreciate it, and I hope that you took something from this that is beneficial. And if you did, please let me know what your favorite part was. I would love to hear it.